Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Favor, and in today's tutorial we are going to be learning how to make this cute halter top. So let's get right into the tutorial.
So the materials we'll be needing for this tutorial includes some stitch markers, a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, a measuring tape, and I'll be using a size 5mm hook for this tutorial. You can use any hook size and yarn of your choice. Okay, and for the yarn, this is the colors of yarn I'll be making use of. Okay, this is a fingering lightweight yarn. They're all fingering lightweight yarn, and I'm using 2 strands of it. You can use 1 strand of a worsted weight yarn or any yarn of your choice. So let's get into the tutorial. So the first thing we are going to do is to take our tape and measure our around your bust area. Okay, so my bust is 35 inches. Okay, and half of this is what we are going to be working with. So you take your bust measurements all the way around and note that measurement. For me it is 35, and then you want to divide it by 2, or you can simply just fold your tape in half like so. When you fold your tape in half, you'll be able to figure out the half measurement of your bust. So this is 17.5 for me. So we are going to make a chain that can stretch up to 17.5. So let's get started. So you want to take your yarn and your hook, hold your yarn the way you would hold it, and then place your yarn on your hook, and then you want to twist around, yarn over, and pull through that loop, and then pull on the tail to make your slip knot. So once you have your slip knot, now the next thing is to make chain. So you just yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, and keep making that until it can stretch up to the bust measurement that we needed, which is half of your bust measurement. Okay, so just go ahead and keep making this, and then when you have it a certain length, you just take your tape, place it flat, and then measure it. So you measure the stretched, so you want to stretch out the chain really far as you can, and then note the measurement. So this now is around 6.5. Okay, so I'm just going to keep doing this until I have about 17.5 inches. Okay, so at this point I have my chain long enough to stretch up to the length that I need, and when you measure this without stretching, okay, you can see I have around 13 inches without stretching it. So we are going to stretch it out now to see the total length. So you want to place your starting of your chain on your tape, hold it really tight there, and then you stretch the chain along the tape. So you can see this is around 17 inches, okay, and it stretches up to 17.5 to almost 18. So that is the length that I need for my chain. Okay, so once you have your length the way you need it, we are going to start working on the chain. So to start working on the foundation chain, we are going to place a single crochet into the second chain from our hook. So you want to insert your hook into that chain there, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now you have 2 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through both loops. So that is the first stitch there. So the next stitch is going to be double crochet. So yarn over into that next chain space, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now you have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the second 2. So these are the pattern we are going to be repeating for this row. So 1 single crochet, 1 double crochet. Okay, so into the next stitch now you place a single crochet there, and then yarn over into the next stitch, you place a double crochet there. Into the next stitch you place a single crochet, yarn over into the next stitch, you place a double crochet. Okay, so you're just going to keep alternating between single crochets and double crochet on all of the stitches until you get to the end of your chain. So I've made the alternating single crochet and double crochet all the way towards the end of the row, and I have just 2 chains left. So my last stitch was a double crochet. So into the next chain now I make a single crochet, and then into the very last stitch I'll be placing a double crochet. So your last stitch might be different. Your stitch might end with a single crochet. Okay, it's totally fine. It's not going to affect your work. So the next thing for us to do now is to chain 1, turn our work, and then since my previous stitch here, this stitch here is a double crochet, I'll be placing a single crochet on it, and this place where I have a single crochet, I'll be placing a double crochet. Just the same thing we did in the previous row. The only difference is that on a double crochet you place a single crochet, and on a single crochet you place a double crochet. So since this first stitch now is a double crochet, I'm going to make a single crochet stitch into that double crochet. If yours was a single crochet, you place a double crochet on it. Okay, so into the next now, since it's a single crochet, you place a double crochet on that stitch. Into the next double crochet, you place a single crochet on it, and then single crochet, you place a double crochet on it. So you just keep repeating that pattern, making 1 single crochet and 1 double crochet on all of the stitches all the way until you get to the end of the row as well. Okay, so just go ahead and keep repeating that pattern until the end. Okay, so I'm towards at the end of the row too, and I have 2 stitches left. You can see this is a double crochet and this is a single crochet. So continuing the same pattern, so place a single crochet on the double crochet, and then the last stitch, which is a single crochet, you place a double crochet stitch into that single crochet there. Okay, so once you're done now, you just want to chain one, turn your work, and into the very first stitch now, this is a double crochet, so you place a single crochet there. Like I said earlier, if yours was a single crochet, you place a double crochet there. So yarn over into the next stitch now, you place a double crochet, into the next stitch you place a single crochet, into the next stitch you place a double crochet. So we are just repeating what we did for the previous row, okay, for this row all over again. So we are just going to keep alternating between single crochets and double crochets on all of these stitches. Okay, so you can see this is what you should have. So this alternation gives our work a textured kind of look. Okay, so yeah, that is it. So you just go ahead and keep alternating this. We are going to keep repeating this row after row, row after row, okay, all the way until we have it the length that we need. So we'll be making it all the way until we can measure it up to 8 inches. Okay, so this is the length we have now, about almost 1. So we want to keep doing this until we have about 8. So just go ahead and keep repeating this row after row, alternating between single crochets and double crochet on all of these stitches until we have it the length that we need. Alright, so at this point now I have my work about the length I want it to be. So this is the work just laying out flat, and when you take your measurements right now, you can see it's a bit more than 8 inches. Okay, so to get the right measurement, because I said we should keep making this until we have about 8 inches in length, so you want to stretch out the work. Okay, so try to stretch it out. Why we are doing this is because when we wear it, it is going to be stretched out on our body, so you want to stretch it out to get the correct measurement for the length. So you measure it once again. So you can see at this point now it's exactly at that 8-inch mark. So this is the length we want to have. So once you have this now, we are going to start decreasing. Okay, we are going to start making decreases at the end in order to achieve that halter neck that we want. Okay, so to start our halter neck decreasing now, so you want to, so by the way, this length now is above your bust, which is right under your armpit. Okay, so now we'll start making the decrease for the halter neck. So to get started, I've already chained one. You turn your work and you're going to skip the very first stitch here. Okay, you skip this first stitch and walk into the second stitch. So the second stitch is a single crochet, so I'm going to be placing a double crochet there. Okay, yarn over, skip that first stitch into the second stitch, place a double crochet there, skip that. I'm not skipping any more stitches. Okay, so after placing a double crochet there, the next stitch is a double crochet, so you place a single crochet there. We are just doing what we've been doing for all the other rows. The only difference is that we skipped the first stitch. Okay, so into the next stitch you place a double crochet because that's a single crochet. Into the next stitch you place a single crochet, and just keep repeating this pattern all the way across till you get to the end of the row. Okay, so like I said, you skip the very first stitch and start working on the second stitch, and then put the corresponding stitch you're supposed to put for the pattern all the way until you get to the end of the row where you have just 2 stitches left, and I'll show you what to do. Okay, so at this point I've worked all the stitches all the way towards the end, and I have just about 2 stitches left to complete. Okay, so we're going to skip this very second stitch and then work on the last stitch. Okay, so to do that, all you have to do, you take note of your very last stitch. So mine was a double crochet, so on this last stitch now I'll place a single crochet regardless of the fact that I have a single crochet down here. Okay, but so that this is going to even out for this row, so since this is a double crochet, I'll place a single crochet here. If yours is a single crochet, you end up placing a double crochet here. So I'm just going to place a double crochet. So you skip the second stitch and work into the very last stitch there. Okay, so that completes this row. You turn your work, chain one and turn, and then you're going to skip the very first stitch and place your stitch into the second stitch here. So this second stitch now is a double crochet, so I'm going to be placing a single crochet on top of it. Yarn over into the next stitch, which is a single crochet, you place a double crochet there. So you just keep alternating between single crochets and double crochet all the way until you get to the end of the row, and we'll repeat the same thing we did when we were at the end of the previous row. So just go ahead and keep doing this until you get to the end of the row, and I will show you how to do that decrease again at that end. So just go ahead and keep doing this till you have about 2 stitches left. Right, so at this point now I have just 2 stitches left. I've worked all the way, alternating between single crochets and double crochets all the way to this end, and I have only 2 stitches left. So like we did for the previous row, you're going to skip this stitch and then work into the very last stitch. Okay, so since my last stitch here now is a single crochet, I'm just going to yarn over into that very last stitch. I'll be making a double crochet stitch there. Okay, so that is it for this row. So you chain one, turn your work, and then like I said previously, you're supposed to skip your very first stitch and then work into the second stitch. So when you're starting a row, you skip the first stitch and work into the second stitch. When you're at the end of the row, you're going to skip the second stitch and work at the very last stitch. Okay, so that is how to make decreases for this pattern. So at this is my very first stitch, and I'm going to skip that and work into this single crochet. So since this is a single crochet, I'm going to make a double crochet there. Into the next stitch, which is a double crochet, you make a single crochet. and then you just keep alternating between single crochets and double crochets until you get to the end of the row, and then you make your decreases as well. So that is it. So you can see at this point, you can see this decrease shape is already forming, and it will keep making that shape until we have it the length that we want for the neck. So we should keep making these until we have about 7 inches when you measure the top of your work, like so. So just go ahead and keep decreasing until we get to this point. So at this point now, I've done the reduction. You can see the shape is already formed for the halter neck, and it measures from here, which is the top of the work. Okay, you can see it's about 7 inches, like so. So that is how you should measure it. And then we are also going to measure the total length of our work. So remember, like I said, when you're measuring the length, you need to stretch out. Okay, so once you're done stretching out, you flatten it, and then you measure across the top the length of the work. So I have about 10, a little bit more than 10. So I want to now keep making rows of no decrease, okay, because I've achieved the neck length that I want. So I'm just going to keep making row after row without decreasing any point until the total length of my work when measured will be around 12 inches. So this is going to be the total length of our top. Okay, so I want to keep making this now until we have around 12, like so. Okay, so we need to make about 1.5 more. So we're just going to keep making rows of no increase all the way until this point. So just continuing what we've been doing before. The only difference is that we are not decreasing anymore. So I've already chained one. You just turn your work. The very first stitch here is a single crochet, so you're going to make a double crochet there. So yarn over and make a double crochet in that stitch. The next stitch is a double crochet, so you place a single crochet there, and then you keep alternating between single crochets and double crochet on all of the stitches until you get to the end of that row. Okay, and when you get to the end of the row, remember we are not decreasing again, so you're not skipping any stitch. You want to make sure that you place your stitches accordingly. Pick that very last stitch, turn your work, and continue repeating the pattern without skipping any stitches until the total length of your work is up to 12 inches. Okay, so at this point, this is what you should have. Okay, I've made it the way I want it. So this is actually the length I want it to be. So remember I said we'll be using the stretched out length. Okay, so this is the work without me stretching it out first. So I'm showing you the before and after so that you understand why I said you should always. So you can see this is 13. But when you stretch out the parts, you're only stretching out this down part too, which is the body of the work, not the neck part, not the halter part, just this body of the work. Okay, so once you stretch it out and then you lay it out real flat, we are going to measure it again. Okay, starting from that top all the way down. So you can see it is about that 12, just a little bit more than 12. So I have like 12.5, which is totally fine. If yours is 12 on the dot, it's still okay. So now once you have it the length that you want, now we want to go ahead and place single crochets on all of the borders of our work so that we'll have a more neat look before we add the white part of the work. So right now at this very last stitch here, I'm just going to chain one. Okay, because once I chain one, I'm going to start working all the way down. So first of all, before you start working, you want to mark out this point where we started making our decreases. So you want to take your stitch marker, that very point where you started making your decrease. Okay, you want to mark it. Okay, the row before you started making your decrease, you mark out that row, and onto this end as well, you mark out that row as well. Okay, so now at this point you can go ahead and count the number of rows and make sure that they tally, that they are the same number of rows on both sides so that you're marking at the correct spots. So once you've done that, now we are going to start working on this side, and when we get to where the stitch marker is, we are going to chain one before we start working on the side of the work. When we get to this point, we chain one. So let's just start it so you see it's more. So after this chain one, now into this very first stitch that we have here, this very first row, you're going to place a single crochet there. Into the next row now, which is where we have a double crochet, you place a single crochet in that double crochet. So into the next stitch now, which is where we have a single crochet row, you place one single crochet there. Into the next stitch, so you can see the spaces are there, you place a single crochet. Into the next row, you place a single crochet. So you just go ahead and keep placing single crochets on all of the stitches until you get to where your stitch marker is. And like I said, you should go ahead and count the number of rows you have. So the total number of rows you have should be the same with the total number of single crochets you're going to have till you get to this point. So just go ahead and keep placing single crochets on all of those stitches there, and then I will meet you when we get to this point. So I've placed a single crochet on all of the rows, and when I get to where this stitch marker is, you want to chain one, you take off that stitch marker and then place your next single crochet into the very next row there. Okay, so you can see it's a double crochet row, so I'm just going to place my stitch there, and then into this next row now, which is a single crochet, I'm just going to place one single crochet. Then into the next row you place a single crochet, and just keep making this all the way until you get to this other end of the work as well. Okay, so for each of the rows you're just placing one single crochet at the end of your work. So this is what you should have at this point. Okay, and that place where we chained one, okay, you want to look for that place where we made a chain one before working on this part of our work, and then you want to place your stitch marker back into that chain one space. Okay, so this is it for me. So you place your stitch marker back into that chain one space because we're going to work on it when we get back. So this is what you should have. So just keep doing this all the way until you get to the end of the row. When you get to this point, you remember, since it's a point, you chain one and then turn and keep making single crochets on all of the stitches on the base. When you get to this point, you chain one and then make the same thing we did all the way back up to where this other stitch marker is. Okay, you chain one and then continue working on this other side of the halter until we get to this point, and then we work all the way back to where we started. So that is just what you have to do. So just keep making single crochets across the border of your work like so until we get back to where we started. Okay, so I've worked the single crochets all the way and I'm back to right where we started. So we started from here and made single crochets on all of the stitches. Okay, when you get to this point, you chain one and continue on this side. Get to this point, you chain one as well, continue, and get to this point, you chain one as well, and then continue placing single crochet on all of the rows on this side. And when I got to this point as well, chain one and single crochet all the way until right back at where we started. So once you're at this point now, the next thing to do is to slip stitch to the side single crochet on this side. So you just insert your hook there, yarn over, pull through and pull through the loop on your hook, then chain one and pull up a loop. Okay, and then cut in between that loop. So this is it for the single crochet across the border. So remember, I said don't take off your stitch markers at this point of your work, so that you will know where your chain one is. And I also said that you should have the same number of single crochets from this point all the way to this point, and then from this point all the way to this point. You should have the same number, and then the same thing goes from this side then all the way to the down here, and then from this side all the way to this side. You should also have the same number of single crochets. Okay, it is very, very important. So once you're done doing that, we are now going to switch on to our white yarn. So now for our white yarn, okay, we are going to start working with it. So this was where we fastened off, so you want to flip your work now like so, and then we are going to start working from here. So you want to find the chain one space in between here where before we started working the top. So once you find that chain one space, you want to put your hook through, and then that is where we are going to be attaching our yarn. Okay, so you find that chain one space, put your hook through, and then attach your new color of yarn. If you don't want to use a different color, you can just use the same color and replicate the process. So once you've attached your new yarn now, you want to chain one. Remember, it was a chain one space, so you make that same chain one there. Into the next stitch space there, you're going to place one single crochet. Okay, into the next stitch space you make one single crochet, and we're just going to make one single crochet on all of the previous single crochets until we get to this point where we have our stitch marker. So I've worked all the way and I'm at that point where I have my stitch marker. So you can always go ahead and stretch out your work like so, because you notice it's scrunching up a bit. So you just go ahead and stretch it out, and then when you get to where that stitch marker is, you want to chain one again, take it off. Okay, so after your chain one and you take off your stitch marker, you want to place one single crochet into that chain one space, and then into the next stitch space you place another one single crochet, and then just keep repeating single crochets on all of the stitches until you get to the end of the row. So this is what you should have. Okay, and then remember, you replace your stitch marker into the chain one space, don't forget that. So this is what you should have. Okay, so at this point now you want to repeat this all the way down to this point. You repeat the chain one space and continue making single crochets. When you get to the chain one space, you make another chain one space, and then keep placing single crochet all the way, and then repeat the same process on this side until we get right back at where we started. So it's just simply the same thing as the previous row, so you just keep repeating this all the way around. I'm right back at where we started. Okay, I have just one more stitch to place a single crochet into, and then I have this place where we started, so I'm just going to slip stitch into that chain space. Okay, so once you slip stitch into that chain space, you want to chain one, pull up a loop, and then cut in between the chain. So this is what you should have after you're done making this row of single crochet. So you can see, so this is going to be the front part of our work, and this part is going to be the wrong side of your work. So this is what we have. So next thing now is we are going to start working on this side for the back lace up. So we are going to attach our white yarn back to this point where we have our stitch marker. Remember I said you should replace your stitch marker at those chain one spaces whenever you get back to that point. So now we are going to remove this stitch marker on this side. Into that chain one space, we are going to attach our yarn here. So you attach your yarn into that chain one space, and then into the next stitch here. Now we are going to be making a double crochet stitch there. So to start it now, we are going to insert our hook into that space, make one single crochet. By this bar of the single crochet, you insert your hook there and make another single crochet, and then by this side of the second single crochet, insert your hook there and make another single crochet. So this gives us the height for a double crochet that we need. So this is our first double crochet. Once you have this, now you want to chain one, and then you want to skip the next stitch and place a double crochet into the second stitch there. You chain one, skip the next stitch and make a double crochet into that second stitch there. You chain one again, skip the next stitch and make a double crochet into the next stitch space. So we are just going to keep repeating this pattern: chain one, skip one stitch, make a double crochet, chain one, skip one stitch, make a double crochet, all the way until we get right to this very last stitch here. Okay, this is the stitch before the chain space at this corner. So you just get until we get to this very last stitch space. So at this point, when you are towards that end, okay, so this is what I should have. So this is where my chain one is, and this is the first stitch of this row for this side. So I'm just going to make my chain one, skip that chain stitch there, and place my last double crochet into that first stitch for this side, so that everything is going to look aligned. Okay, it is all going to be on a straight line. So okay, excuse me, I did not pick the stitch well, so pick all the loops there and then make your stitch. So this is what you should have. So assuming it's a stitch you have here instead of a chain one, you can skip those stitches, or you can skip that stitch and then make your very last stitch. So just make sure that it is aligning with this same line on this side of your work. So you might want to chain one, turn your work into the very first stitch. You want to make a double crochet stitch there. So remember how we made the first double crochet. So you make 3 single crochets stacked on each other. So once you've made the 3 single crochet, this is your first double crochet. Chain one, into that second double crochet, you place a double crochet on it. Okay, into the next double crochet stitch, after you chain one, you place a double crochet stitch there. So this is just the pattern to repeat all the way until you get to the end of the row. When you get to this point, you chain one, turn your work, and repeat the same process all over again, all the way back. So we are going to do this for about 4 rows. So this is the second row. You do this for 3 more rows until you have a total of 4 rows. So I've made a total of about 3 rows of the mesh pattern, and it is about 1.5. Okay, for the mesh pattern, it's about 1.5, and I'm just going to, place single crochets on all of these stitches for the next 2 rows, so as to give it a more solid hold. Okay, so chain one, turn your work, into the very first double crochet there, you place a single crochet. Into the chain space, you place a single crochet. Into the double crochet, you place a single crochet, and into the chain space you place a single crochet. And this is just the pattern to repeat on all of the stitches across until you get to the end of the row. So I've placed a single crochet all the way across to the end of the row. So you just chain one, turn your work, and repeat the same process all over again by placing single crochets on all of the stitches on your work. So I'm just placing one more single crochet row. So you just place single crochet on all of these stitches until you get to this point, and then you fasten off. So now I'm done with this second row of single crochet. So I'm just going to chain one, pull up a loop, and then cut off the excess yarn as usual. Okay, so So that completes this part. So this is what you should have for this mesh part of your work. Okay, so this is the top, so it goes like this, and then this is the mesh part. So you want to go ahead and repeat the same exact process on this side of your work. Remember, you're starting right at where that stitch marker is, which is in between the chain one space. That is where you're connecting your yarn. So I think mine fell off, so I'm just going to find that chain one space and then repeat the same process all the way to this point over, and just replicate the same exact pattern on this side, and then I'll see you after we are done with that. So after you're done making the mesh for the lace up, okay, this is what you have on both sides. Okay, right now we are going to make for the hand. So this is the back part of the work, so you flip it to the right side and we are going to attach the straps. So for the straps, you want to, that point where we have our chain one space in between here, this is where we'll be attaching our yarn. So like I said, make sure this is the front part of your work, and then you attach your yarn like so. So once you have attached your yarn into that chain part, then the very next stitch space here, now you want to place a single crochet there. Okay, once you make the single crochet there, into the next stitch space you make another single crochet there. Okay, so now you have 2 single crochet. After that you want to chain 2. After your chain 2, into that same stitch space we are going to make a mini puff stitch. So you just insert your hook into that same stitch space. Now you have 3 loops on your hook. You yarn over again into that same stitch space. Okay, so this is what you should have. You should have 5 loops now on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through all the loops at once, and then chain 1 to secure the puff. Once you've done this, now you want to chain 2 and then turn your work. So now the space in between the puff and the chain space, that is where you want to place your next puff stitch. So yarn over into that stitch space, you make your first puff stitch. Yarn over into that same stitch space, you make another puff stitch. So this makes 5 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. So this is why you should just keep repeating row after row until you have it the length that you need. So after you've secured the puff stitch with the chain 1, you want to chain 2, turn your work, and then you separate it to get that space where you place your next puff stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop. So now you have 5 stitches, yarn over, pull through all loops, yarn over, chain 1 to secure it. So this is just the pattern for the straps. So you chain 2 and keep repeating the process over and over and over again until you have it the length that you want for the straps. So this is the straps after I've made a number of rows. Okay, and when I measure it without stretching it out, okay, as you can see, I'm just measuring it along the tape without stretching out the straps. I have about 33 inches here. Okay, but my goal for the strap is to measure it without stretching. As you can see, it stretches really well, so I'm going to measure it without stretching, and it should measure around 45 inches. Okay, so place the tape and at the top of the strap, and then you stretch the strap along the body of the tape. Okay, so you stretch along as you go. So you can see it's exactly 45 for the stretched length of the straps. So that is what you should aim for. So once you have your strap the length that you need, you might choose to increase it or decrease it depending on your size as well. So you just want to chain an extra one and then pull up a loop and then cut off that yarn there. And then we are going to go ahead and repeat the same thing, like these same straps. We'll go ahead and make it on this other side as well. So you want to start from this chain space here. So you want to turn your work around and then insert your hook into this chain space, attach your yarn, make the first 2 single crochets on these next 2 stitches, and then you start making your straps just like we did for the other end. So you repeat that, have it the same exact length like this one, and then we'll come back and weave in our ends. So after making the straps, this is what you should have on both sides, and like I said, you should make it the length that you want. Mine was able to stretch up to 45. So after we are done with the straps, now the next thing is to weave in our ends. So to weave in, we want to turn our work to the back, and we'll be weaving in on the wrong side of the work. Okay, so like for this part now where we have this yarn, you want to take your yarn needle and then pick a few stitches closest to where you have that yarn. Okay, and try as much as you can to pick the same color of yarn when weaving in. All right, so So once you have picked a few stitches like this, you want to feed the yarn through the needle, and then you pull the needle out through the other side of the work. Okay, so once you've done that, now you want to cut off the excess yarn that you just weaved in, and that is it for this part. So you go ahead and repeat that for all these other parts where we have tails hanging out of our work. And then for this part of the straps where we have this other tail here, you also want to just pass your needle through the straps like so, okay, in between the stitches. So once you've passed your needle through the stitches in between like so, you put the yarn through the needle. You put your yarn through the needle and then pull it through the work. Okay, so you straighten that out and then cut off the excess yarn that you have there. So that is how to weave in all your ends. So you just go ahead and weave in all your ends. And then for the back lace up, okay, for the back lace up, this is what you should want to do. You fold this back part how it should be on your body like so. And then for the straps, you want to make sure that it is not twisted. Okay, making sure that that part is not twisted, you leave out little at the top like so, and then little at the top like so. Like I said, make sure it is not twisted. Okay, and then move that. And then we are going to attach this part of the straps now to this place. So you put it under, not through on top, you put it under so it comes out this way. So this is how you put this one. Okay, and then cross it over to this other side of the work. Find the middle point and then put the yarn under. Like I said, it comes out on top. And then for this other last end here, you want to repeat the same thing, put it under and it comes out on top. So this is what you should have for this side of the straps. And then for this other side, you're just going to repeat the same thing, put the yarn through, like I said, under. And once you put it under, you want to put it through to this other side, through the middle point and then through the end point of this other side. Okay, and when you wear it on your body, you adjust the straps as needed and then you tie it. So that is how to do the back lace up. Okay, so this is the front of the work. So just go ahead and weave in all your ends.
And that will be all for this tutorial. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel and leave a comment down below, and also tag me on Facebook and IG when you recreate this tutorial.
You can also check out my other videos. Thank you for watching and see you in my next tutorial. Bye.